All right. Hey, you know a lot. I got mine.
You're on 515.
Oh, how come I did that?
I don't know.
I'll use this one over here. How did I jump from 5 to 5:15?
I don't know. It's the time change.
That's good. I like that.
The time change messed you up.
Hey, I'm not Alicia.
You're like my cat, you know?
I know. You don't even have a cat.
Well, that's
But you used to
it's
have
because I got you. I don't need one.
Hey, Kristie Tertel is the president of strategic marketing and public relations of the Heller Foundation. We're going to talk with her next about her journey in becoming such a passionate Second Amendment advocate. But first, if you have legal matters that involve firearms, then you need to call California firearms lawyer John Dillon, especially if you have questions about red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, or maybe you just need to know that your guns are California compliant. Call our trusted firearms attorney, John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. Call 760-642-7150, or you can visit his website at DillonLawGP.com. Hey, we got Kristie Tertel online. Hey, Kristie, how are you today?
I'm great, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
So, Kristie, you are the president of strategic marketing and public relations for the Heller Foundation. Tell us, of course, we interviewed Dick Heller a few months ago. It was a really interesting, well-received interview. A lot of people commented on it. But tell us a little bit about what the Heller Foundation does.
Sure. Real quick, thank you guys so much for this incredible opportunity. I sincerely appreciate it. The Heller Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. The majority of our time is spent for educational purposes. We are constantly fighting these commies left and right in every state. As much as we can, we submit amicus briefs. Mostly Dick Heller and the Heller Foundation, he is the executive director and founder, pair up and we sue the crap and win. So right now we're 7 for 7 over the past 12 months.
Wow. 7 for 7 with lawsuits? What's one of the lawsuits that you guys were part of?
Was the DC magazine ban. We have another one that is going to be filed pretty much this coming week. Mr. Heller is currently on vacation, so he's actually listening live in West Virginia. So, hey, Rick, what's up?
Tell us about the magazine. What happened? The DC had what? They had a ban on what? Normal capacity magazines?
And essentially, I don't know if you're familiar with we called it the DMV area. So essentially, you can travel 3 miles in a circle, and there was a certain number in DC that you were allowed to carry versus hopping over the border a couple hundred feet in Virginia, and you can carry more. And then Maryland, we don't even want to talk about Maryland. Let's be honest.
What do you mean carry? It was a magazine capacity restriction.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, it was a magazine capacity. So they limited the amount that you could have to a certain number, and the certain number that you could carry was completely different. It was literally one for what you could carry in Virginia.
And you guys won. Congratulations. So that's awesome. So that affected DC residents and gave them a little bit more of their freedom back. Congratulations. That's very, very awesome.
Not that the DC Council had to go back. They had to withdraw that amendment to the bylaw and rewrite it so it wasn't in breach of the Constitution. And we also reached a financial settlement in that. So it was a double whammy. So we're excited about that.
So as the president of strategic marketing and public relations, what do you do for the Heller Foundation?
Right now, I also do a lot of stuff with legislative policy. I'm former Trump administration White House, so I got to meet a lot of very, very pro-Second Amendment sitting members of Congress and the Senate during my time serving, and it has been an incredible journey. What I do is I get in meetings and we're going to meet with President Biden on December 13th in the White House. Mm-hmm. I don't know anyone in the gun community that has done that. Last December, Heller and I were physically removed from Nancy Pelosi's office.
Wait. You guys were physically removed from Nancy Pelosi's office? Wow. Did you go in there with a hammer? Is that? Oh no, wait, that's her husband. Never mind. Disregard that. That's a bad joke. Don't laugh at that, Kelly. Kelly in the studio is laughing at that. That's horrible. Okay, so tell me what happened in Nancy Pelosi's office.
So here's my secret. So the way you book meetings with Nancy Pelosi is you become best friends with her director of communications and her scheduler. So it took me 2.5 years to book this meeting. I approach the human right to self-defense through a woman's perspective, through storytelling. So we'll get into it later if you guys are comfortable, but I opened my rape kit for the first time in front of Nancy Pelosi, and she didn't know what to do.
What do you mean? You opened your rape kit in front of? What does that mean?
Yep.
I don't know what that means.
I was drugged and raped, and about 2.5 years ago, that's when I became a gun owner. And
I'm so sorry. That's horrible. So you were attacked, and that's what got you into firearms?
Oh, a lot more before that. I had been beaten. An ex-boyfriend had beaten me to a coma 6 times, and I had been found left for dead in a Baltimore dumpster. Dick Heller saved my life. I was backstage working as a speaker escort at CPAC, which is kind of like the Super Bowl of conservative politics in D.C., and I was putting makeup on a black eye. And he goes, I didn't know who he was. I had just graduated from law school a couple years prior. The Heller decision was 2008, so I was just entering 3L. I didn't know what was going on. He pulled me aside and said, girl, what is going on? It was the 10-year anniversary of the Heller decision at that point, because it was 2018. He was on stage, and we exchanged numbers. And the first time we ever shot a gun was the $1 million Heller gun at the NRA headquarters in Virginia. I had been an advocate. I've learned all about, the policy initiatives, and I can argue constitutional law in regards to Second Amendment, till I'm dead, till I'm blue in the face. But I grew up, I spent half my life in Australia. I'm Australian American. I was not a gun owner until it was too late, until I have 42 stalkers from working in politics. We are in the process of hiring executive protection. The gentleman is a retired Navy SEAL, went to his house to print documents on the way to the airport, and I don't remember a thing after. I found out I had been raped when the hospital accidentally sent me a bill in the mail. And I was looking through the medical reports and the police reports, and the stuff that he put in my body, he was trying to kill me. There were horse tranquilizers. I had gotten so many, different shots to, make sure I was okay after. I was in and out of consciousness. Apparently, I had walked 11 miles barefoot to the emergency room. I'm pretty proud of myself. I had pulled kind of, I call it maybe like a Mr. Miyagi kind of thing, like a Walker, Texas Ranger, and I had somehow the wherewithal to send my location from my iPhone sporadically while I was in and out of consciousness to my girlfriend, who was on the way to meet me at the hospital. And that's how they were kind of tracking on what was going on with me and where I was. But yeah, I've been drugged and raped, and I'm in trauma therapy because of it, and I've testified over 125 times in state legislatures, Congress, the Senate, you name it, and by storytelling. And I have the most gruesome pictures from my ex beat me. Like, there's brain matter in the picture. There's gruesome, scars that I have on my arm for the rest of my life because of him. And I show that, and I make it human. I make it not all.
More and more, I'm definitely seeing more and more and more. It used to be that people would be into guns. They'd own guns. They'd be into guns as a hobby because they grew up around guns. It was kind of their father, their grandfather taught them. Hunting was another big part. More and more and more, the culture is changing, and people they own guns because of an incident or because of self-defense. And it's your incident. I hate to even say that. I hate to even call it an incident. It sounds so belittling. Is horrific. But a lot of people. It doesn't even have to be. A lot of people that I talk to more and more, they purchase a firearm because they got nervous in a parking lot or something like that. It doesn't have to be as horrific and horrible as your story, but more and more, it's the same reason. They're purchasing firearms. They're becoming a part of the Second Amendment community for self-defense reasons, and it that is a very personal thing. Trying to explain to politicians who don't want you to have a firearm that you do it, because it's your right, or because of the Constitution, or because it's your hobby is nowhere near as effective. It just isn't. But letting them know, hey, here's how a firearm could have saved my life, could have saved my dignity, could have saved my health. I think that's exactly how and why you got into Speaker Pelosi's office. I think that's I think it's important that you tell your story, no matter how horrific it is.
And there's days where I can tell it in full gruesome detail, and the best thing is using the visuals where people get to know me. You see a picture of someone in campaigns and you say, oh, that's just politics. When people get to know me and it's a human being, and then they put two and two together, oh my God, that's Kristie's face. That's brain matter on the side of her face. Guess what? The next time Joe Biden wants to pass any kind of gun control legislation, we're going to get a projection screen and project that thing on the White House.
So what happened? So what happened? How did things, when you talked to Pelosi and what happened? How did you get actually physically removed? Like what exactly happened?
We got removed, so everything was going great. Heller's a fireball, so he was on his best behavior. I was very proud of him. And I actually started opening some of the envelopes from the hospital. So when you get a rape kit done, they actually take everything off of you, even your earrings, your underwear, everything, even your shoes, and they test them for, any type of male excrement, to be used at trial later. My dress that I was raped in was part of that rape kit. The hospital report with the listing of drugs, with the gruesome marks, they had found 6 unused tampons inside of me. They had found an entire bottle of Vicodin with the label on it, with the gentleman's name on it, inside of me, and a remote control.
So what? And again, is absolutely horrific. What? So did Pelosi listen to you, or did they finally just said, "You're out of here. You got to leave"? She started to tear up, and then her scheduler came in and said, "We have a scheduling conflict." Wow. So she didn't even want to listen. I think it touched her. I think for the first time she actually saw humanity, and it made her do a double look. And she got up in her chair, and she was out. But she actually agreed to sit down with me and Mr. Heller and talk. So, wow, we're trying. We're doing everything that we can to, this was all preventable. And by telling my story, this can happen to anybody. Men are victims too of domestic violence. A lot of men are afraid to come forward. So the more that people like us come out and tell our stories and empower people, I've been the Heller Foundation has been collaborating with Tony Simon on diversity shoots here on the East Coast. He has them about twice a month, and we're bringing people from all walks of life and making it fun and introducing, men, women, everything in between to the firearms. And they come in shaking and scared, and it's great. Hey,
Kristie, can I get you to hold for our next segment? Can you hang with us?
Sure, I'd love to.
Oh, man, that's
quick
great.
Commercial.
Yeah, quick commercial. A self-defense event happens in seconds. In the time it takes to listen to this commercial, your life could change forever. I pray you never are forced to shoot into self-defense, but if you must, then you must be ready. That's why USCCA exists, because every responsibly armed American should have the training and education to navigate a self-defense situation. And should you ever need it, the 24/7 critical response team is right there for you. To discover more about USCCA, visit uscca.com. Act now, because the life you save could be your own. uscca.com/GOR.
So
all right, go ahead.
We're talking to Kristie Tertel, who was just telling us a bit of her story and what she does for the Heller Foundation. Let's talk a little bit more about the Heller Foundation, Kristie. What? So you guys are 7 for 7 this year. What's it look like moving forward?
We have a very, very big lawsuit that is about to drop. Mr. Heller was going to drop it last week, but we're trying to. It's going to be very messy. It has something to do with an AR. That's all I'm going to say and put it out there. You guys are the first to hear about it.
Oh, breaking news! So you guys are you're saying you're filing a new lawsuit, and it has to do with ARs.
That's all I can say. But oh yeah, it's going to blow your mind.
Blow my mind. That's awesome. Well, good. So how does it, tell me a little bit about how the foundation functions? Is there a way, do you guys take membership, or what can we do to support the organization?
Sure. If you go to www.hellerfoundation.org, right now we're accepting donations, solely donations, for the process of fundraising just for these lawsuits. There will be a membership program rolling out next quarter. Thank you so much for reminding me of that. Because normally these lawsuits, when they do get to, the Supreme Court level, like the Heller decision did, that costs about $3 million just in legal fees.
Yeah.
So it is extremely expensive. And Mr. Heller is also...
Did you say offensive? It's both offensive and expensive. It's offensive. It has to cost that much. But what kind of insight can you give us? So, because I tell people that all the time, like, hey, lawsuits are expensive. It's $250,000 in a district court. It's $1 million, whatever, $2 million to get to the Supreme Court. Can you give us a little insight? Where a lot of that money is simply the hours and hours and hours an attorney has to spend, crafting the statement and making sure they get it right and all that other good stuff. But give us a little insight. Like, why does it cost $2 million?
90% of it is legal research, and anyone who went to law school is probably shuddering right now because it is spending hours upon hours. Those little endnotes and the footnotes that you see at the bottoms of all the legal filings? It is that. So you need to make sure you source every single, bullet point, essentially every single reason why you're filing. And pretty much every single sentence has to be accurately sourced, either to find a precedent or, to codified case law or, federal law, or if you're filing in a state, state law. So it is 90% that boring stuff that is not sexy, that does not make the news, that is you're staying up until 2 a.m. in the law library, doing your research to make sure your arguments are accurate and up to date, because the law changes pretty much daily.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that, your arguments are factually and legally correct and on point and up to date at all times.
And so you I think you mentioned earlier in the conversation and what I read, you got out of law school just a few years ago.
When did I graduate? So I have 2 law degrees, because why not? My first law degree, I graduated in 2009. I did a lot of corporate stuff, so like mergers and acquisitions. I spent a lot of time in Singapore and Australia, Sydney, Australia. I moved to the United States in 2015, actually to become a kidney donor to my mom. And that's kind of how I got into politics, because I was like, well, this law stuff, working 18, 20-hour days, 7 days a week, it's kind of getting old. So, politics was fun and sexy. So I figured, why not? Use my skill set that was transferable and get into that. And, about a year later is when I met Mr. Heller, and everything changed.
And I was going to say, so getting out of law school or having your law degree, you probably never imagined that you were going to spend so much time in the Second Amendment world. How has that been? What's your being on? It doesn't sound like you were a gun person, and now you're about as involved as a person can get. Talk a little bit about the before and after. What's it like being on the outside and then coming on the inside and meeting gun people and being involved in the issues. What were some of your impressions?
I wrote my senior thesis in undergrad about how guns are the most awful thing alive. We didn't need guns. They video games were the reason that Columbine happened. It was the most, I need to find that old 20-page paper, because it is just full of humor and satire at this point. Getting into, I had a really pretty easy transition into the gun industry, simply, from politics, is because politics and, legislation and policy are kind of intertwined. So I did have a very, very easy transition, and everyone has been so kind and so resourceful. Like I'm in the process. I just left the New York governor campaign, and I'm in the process of packing a leave for Georgia in the morning for the runoff. And I already reached out to different members of the gun community to be like, hey, is there a range in this part of Georgia, or would you recommend a safer area? And they're on it, and they're making calls. It's like a giant family. It is so awesome. I wish I had gotten into the gun industry 10 years ago. It is incredible.
That's awesome. That's very, very cool. Now, are you able to carry now, or do you? I don't know how. I think you live. Do you live in D.C. or do you live in Virginia? Or maybe you
I
don't
live
want
in
to. Where do you live? I'm sorry.
I live in Pennsylvania.
Oh, all right. So you can carry. All right, you carry. Now, what was it like? You had to go through the training and everything. What was it like the first month you were carrying every day?
Terrifying.
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 Why was it terrifying?
My first week, I held one of those training dummy guns that we use in Krav Maga.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same weight as a regular gun because my EDC is an FN 509C, and I love it, but there's no safety on it. And I love it now that there's no safety, but just the mentality I still had at that point where my training wasn't as proficient as it was. Like, it was intimidating as a woman to go into the gun shop. I was literally fresh out of the hospital about 12 hours after I was raped. I walked into the gun shop and was like, help, I need to buy my first firearm. And they took me by the hand and helped me. I got my first lesson maybe a month later, and that's when I started carrying on my person. And the first week was a little scary because I was like, this is a tool. My firearm, I am responsible for what happens, and, the different rules that the NRA teaches you when you're learning how to shoot. You want to make sure that, you're responsible for what is also behind what you're shooting. And that was so new to me, and it was so overwhelming, and making sure, I was so new to learning situational awareness. And the first week was overwhelming, but now I'm confident, and I now go to the mall at night. I was never done that before. I still get death threats at least twice a week, unfortunately. I get doxxed by Antifa pretty regularly. I made their top 12 list last year. What's up? So I'm really, really big on all of the other aspects of carrying that, situational awareness, going back to everything being preventable. God forbid I do have to use my firearm. I trust my training, but I need to maintain that training. So now I'm completely comfortable carrying. It's just, dry firing. I'm dry firing every day now. I love it. I think it's fun.
So you went from fairly anti-gun to extremely pro-gun. Did you lose any friends along the way?
What's crazy is the people who I have friends on all sides of the political spectrum, and I play ice hockey in college, and a lot of them are Democrats. And because of my story, and because they knew me, they went and bought a gun.
So you converted more people than lost people.
Yeah. I can't, maybe 2 people that I lost over the years. Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting, and we definitely saw, I've talked about this before, during, the mostly peaceful protests for with the riots that happened a few years ago. All the political rhetoric goes out the window. When during peaceful times, there's all this political rhetoric and all these, false statistics and, these bumper sticker anti-gun phrases that people use. But when there really is the perception that, hey, I might be in danger, all that rhetoric goes out the window and people want a gun. And it's all that, like, well, it might go off, or if you're more likely to blah, blah, blah. All these myths that we've heard, all that goes out the window. It's just, people know, deep down, that a firearm is absolutely the most effective self-defense tool ever created. It is absolutely the great equalizer, and it's especially important for women. I mean, that's the reality, right?
Yeah, and the more outspoken I am, I have, at one point, the first time I ever spoke out about it was actually at the 10-year anniversary of the 2008 Supreme Court decision with Heller in front of the Supreme Court. And I didn't know it at the time before my stalkers were there. And a year later, I had gotten engaged to a White House Marine, and my ex filed a peace order against me in Maryland, which are so very easy to get. I was actually pro red flag law until it happened to me. And it took a lot of money to deal with it and get it reversed. But I have literally disproven by living through hell and back with a smile on my face, every single gun control argument. So that is why the Heller Foundation is effective, is we make it personable. We use the art of storytelling. You don't want to listen to me? Okay, here is a picture of Kristie with brain matter. Kristie,
well, you know what? I'll tell you what, Kristie, if you ever write your autobiography, you should call it From Hell to Heller.
Oh,
Right? The Kristie Tertel, right? I'm not even going to charge you for that. That's my free gift to you. Okay, how can people find the Heller Foundation to pitch in a couple of bucks for the fantastic work you guys are doing? What's your website?
thank you, sir. www.hellerfoundation.org. Our socials are at the Heller Foundation, at Real Dick Heller, and at Kristie Tertel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so candid. I know some of the things you talked about here today were very difficult, and I'm sorry you went through what you went through, but thank you so much for sharing your story and spending time with us. Thank you.
It's an honor to fight with you guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.